Go ahead and turn your Bibles to Psalm 16. If you got a Bible, turn them up into Psalm 16. If you don't have a Bible, we have Bibles for you. We have free Bibles outside the tent that you can grab one on your way out, or you can run out right now and get one. No shame there. But we want you to have a Bible here when you come to church so that you can follow along, highlight, take notes, and just see for yourself that when we teach anything from this stage, that you are not just getting a man's opinion, but you're getting the Word of God. We always want to be people that we look to the text and we see, is it actually being said or not? So we're going to have slides on the screen, but always, if you have a copy of the Word of God with you on your phone or in your hand, we encourage that. As you're going there, one thing to note, after service, of all the stuff going on after, we also have a table that's going to be out in the courtyard with a few people there that would love to talk with you. If you have any middle or high school students in your family, or if you're interested in serving in those environments, we had a goal this year that we wanted to eventually, in some shape or form, create an environment of ministry for middle to high school students. And so we have a team of people right now working with some ideas to try to craft and figure out what that looks like. And we'd love to know who's in our church that would be actually affected by that. So if you are a parent or if you're a student and you want to talk to them, they would love to meet you out there. Heather, our kids coordinator, will be at the table with a few other people out there. And so stop by there if you have any questions or interested. We love to talk with you. Psalm 16. Summer in the Psalms. We kicked off this series last week. We are going through for 8 weeks about different Psalms in the Bible, in the book of Psalms. This is one of my favorite books of the Bible that we have. If you were to ask me, what's been the most formative book that you've read in the Bible? I would maybe not immediately say this, but I would definitely say top 3 would be the book of Psalms. The way that it's impacted and shaped my life like no other book has. And that's because back in the day, also, excuse me, I'm coming off of this weird coughing I have. That's why I'm doing the hand mic today so I can pull away so you don't hear that every time, all right? Because I love you, all right? So we're in this together. But if I go back in time, and when I grew the most in my walk with Jesus, it was a season where I sat down and I studied through the entire book of Psalms over a summer. And I'm just telling you, it was transformative for me. One of the reasons why I love the book of Psalms is because in that book, it gives voice to every human emotion we feel as we walk with God. Joy, grief, doubt, frustration, anger, fear, hope, faith, praise, and even more than that. If you have felt some type of way before in your walk with God, the Psalms have wrote about it. They have something in there for you. You have a conflicting emotional desire or feeling towards God. You feel shame about that. I always point people to this. If you sat down with me, if I've counseled you and you're going through a tough time right now, you're feeling a little coldness in your walk with Jesus, I'm always like, go read the Psalms. Go do it right now. You'd be shocked. It's like, I just don't know if I should feel this way. Now, we don't want to stay in the negative emotions, but so many people think it's like there's something wrong with me because I'm angry or sad or upset at God. Now, is it always merited? Maybe not. But is it normal? Absolutely. Go read some of the Psalms, man. David doesn't pull punches. That man sometimes is like, where you at? I thought you cared about me. Guess you don't. Cool. You gonna start caring anytime soon? Like, are you actually watching after me? Like, what are you at right now? Are you sleeping? Like, he gets real, all right? So I always tell people, go read them because there's something comforting in your own experience. When you feel something, you're able to see a guy who is called a man after God's own heart, and then he goes to blows in his writings. It's encouraging. Now, he doesn't stay there, but that's why I love the book of Psalms. Because it helps us understand that we got to take these emotions and desires, the things that we feel, and even if they're bad or they're good, there's a way to honor God with them. And this book gives us an understanding of how to do that. See, the book of Psalms is a book of praise and prayer for the people of God. There are several different kinds of Psalms in the book. There's Psalms of trust, thanksgiving, praise, history, confession, prophecy, lament, and imprecatory ones. You're saying, what is those? Those are the ones where David or other writers write about the destruction of their opponents and their enemies. Like they actually pray for like wrath of God on people. Little crazy. We're not going to get there today. I don't know if we're going to get there this summer, but they're in there, okay? That's a whole theological conversation. I'm just saying, it's in the book, okay? So there's different kinds of Psalms that have different purposes for the people of God to sing and to pray to him. So what we're going to do in this series now is from now until the end of July, is we're going to look at certain Psalms, most of them that are either well-known or popular for really good reason, or just some that I think are going to have a powerful effect on our own walk with Jesus, and we're just going to kind of extrapolate the information and truth out of them and try to lay it over our life. Just walk through the text in that way. Last week we had Brandon Delage bless us with a teaching through Psalm 1, walk through it faithfully, a great psalm, an introductory to the book of Psalms. And now today we're going to be in Psalm 16, a very powerful and famous psalm for good reason. So let's read it and then we'll dive in. Excuse me. Psalm 16, 1 through 11 says this. Preserve me, O God, for in you I take refuge. I say to the Lord, you are my Lord. I have no good apart from you. As for the saints in the land, they are the excellent ones, in whom is all my delight. The sorrows of those who run after another God shall multiply. Their drink offerings of blood I will not pour out or take their names on my lips. The Lord is my chosen portion and my cup. You hold my lot. The lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Indeed, I have a beautiful inheritance. I bless the Lord who gives me counsel in the night. Also my heart instructs me. I have set the Lord always before me. Because he is at my right hand, I shall not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad and my whole being rejoices. My flesh also dwells secure. For you will not abandon my soul to Sheol or let your Holy One see corruption. You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. Now, if you've ever heard this psalm, you've probably heard the last couple verses. If you've read it or heard it, it's quoted, you've seen it on a coffee mug, it's probably verse 11, right? You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hands are pleasures forevermore. I've used this in many of my sermons. It's an unbelievable text. But this psalm could be categorized as a psalm of trust. It isn't written during anything explicitly bad, which is often the case. You see in the Psalms actually different headings where it says like David running for his life from Saul when he's like trying to kill him. And so he writes this psalm, God, where are you? Help me, protect me. It's not a psalm written during that. It's also not written at the greatest point in his life. It's not a pure thanksgiving or praise psalm. He's not on cloud nine. He's just somewhere in the middle. He's somewhere in this place of his life where he's just kind of confessing trust and faith in God and God alone. So the question that this psalm begs us to answer is seen in the first verse. It says this, preserve me, O God, for in you I take refuge. You see, David begins with an expression of trust. God, I'm making you the refuge in my life. I believe you're going to protect and you're going to preserve me. Nothing else will. He'll then spend the rest of this chapter looking at the reasons why he's chosen God to be this trusted refuge. But also he'll describe the alternative. What do other people run to or look to as a refuge outside of God? Here's the underlying question that will guide our time this morning. Here's the underlying question of Psalm 16. When times are hard, when things go bad, when you're in a state of need or desperation, where do you run to? I think that's the question this psalm asks us to answer. David's answering it up front. But then knowing his answer, there's a moment that we should look and ask ourselves, well, what do we do? What do we say? Who do we look at right now? Or what do we look at right now and say, you're my refuge. You preserve me. David's clearly making a case for two different options. And what we're going to do basically today is look at both options. What options do we have to run to, that you run to, that I run to? And here's the first one that we see in the first couple verses, our sin. Look at verses 2 through 4. It says, I say to the Lord, you are my Lord. I have no good apart from you. As for the saints in the land, they are the excellent ones, in whom is all my delight. The sorrows of those who run after another God shall multiply. Their drink offerings of blood I will not pour out or take their names on my lips. Now, another thing here. If you've never read the Psalms before, it's a poetic book. It's actually from the wisdom literature in the Bible. That's Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Psalms, the Song of Solomon. There's another one I'm forgetting. Must not be important. Psalms, okay? So it's in the wisdom literature, but it's also poetic. So the way they write certain things often is to use imagery, but not necessarily to be literal in that way, or to be to exaggerate a point, use parallels, things like that to try to communicate certain truths about God. So you're reading verse 4, and you're listening about drink offerings of blood, and you're like, what is going on here? We'll get to that. But one of the recurring things that Psalm does, as well as other poetic or wisdom literature in the Bible, is use parallels and comparisons. Here, David is comparing and contrasting two groups of people. On one hand, you got the saints. Those are the people he outright calls the saints of the land. And then on the other hand, he doesn't necessarily say this, but in wisdom literature in the Bible, you would say that there's this group called the wicked or evil. So you got like the godly and the righteous, the saints, and then you have the wicked and the evil. Usually you look through Proverbs, Psalms, you see those two groups of people. It makes a very clear contrast between the two people. The saints are literally what it means, holy ones, is a term used for people of God. Not because they're perfect or holy, mind you, but because they serve the only perfect and holy God. So David is saying here that like when he's looking at the people he's going to run with, we talked about this a little bit with Brandon last week, right? Like not to walk or sit in the way of sinners. Like you don't want to do that because you do that, it's going to go badly for you. Here, he's reinstating, I'm not going to be like the people that are running after other gods. I'm not going to speak about what they do. I'm going to actually look to the saints. They understand, along with David, verse 2, this is what the saints understand, that you are my Lord and I have no good apart from you. There's a very big teaching in the gospel that we have to understand. It's unfortunate that the world, for some reason, thinks that Christians are self-righteous, arrogant hypocrites that think that we're better than everyone else. I don't know why they think that. I don't know why we give them that thought. The gospel would have none of that, by the way. The gospel is not you and I are saved because we're godly and holy in of ourselves. It's not the gospel. The gospel is that we're saved by grace alone, through faith alone in Jesus and what he's done for us. The reason that we have any righteousness, any good at all, is because we're in Christ. It's what he's done. You and me are not better than anybody. Think of the worst person you know. Think of the worst thing that people have done, and you've been like, I can't believe they would do that. At least I'm not like them. Well, just pop your balloon a little bit. You are no better than they are. Imagine the most twisted, horrible act someone could do. You're not better than them. Just because you might have not has sinned as much as they have does not make you less sinful. Doesn't make you more holy or good. We don't derive that from our actions of what we do or don't do. We get that from Jesus. So we should never be saying, well, at least I'm not those people. At least I haven't done that. Listen, you got enough sin that did not warrant you to be saved, but to send an eternity apart from God. It was Jesus alone that saved you by grace. Not because you're cute and cuddly, not because you're good looking. I'm sure a lot of you are. Not because you were strong and smart, but just because of grace. And this is just a little bonus point that we just have to be humbled today to remember that. Like no matter where you're at, if you're feeling really good about yourself or you're feeling terrible about yourself, the gospel defines who you are. Not the actions or things you did in the past, not what you'll do in the future, good or bad. We have to understand this point here. In the Bible, both in the Old Testament and New Testament, those who are deemed saints are those who ironically know very well that they are not saints. Their only source of goodness and righteousness comes from God. And so he contrasts these two different groups of what they're doing. And he's hinting that the saints are those who, like him, will make God their refuge. And those who aren't saints, the wicked, are going to go chase after other gods. And the point is always needed to say that you're not going to overcome the people you surround yourself with. You're not going to do that. If you have bad friends, you're not going to end up in good places. The Bible teaches that. Culture teaches that. Experience teaches that. You will end up where your friends and where the people you keep around will take you. So it's important that you don't run with the wicked, that you run with the saints. You won't overcome that. You're not better than that. You aren't. And David right here is making a stance as he looks out into the world is saying, man, I'm going to cherish the saints. I'm not going to even speak of what the other people do. I'm not going to run with those people. I'm going to focus on the right groups of people, surround myself with them and run this race. But then you have this other group of people, like we talked about, that haven't made God their refuge, but they have made something else their refuge, the wicked. These are people that have looked to other gods. This is often referred to as idols. Its practice of going to idols is called idolatry. You might have heard it before. We talk about it in church a lot, Christian circles. It's in the Bible. Now, typically, idolatry, though, in the Old Testament expression, like they actually had named idols. They had statues and images of these different gods that people would serve. But I want to give you a definition of idolatry that we can actually lay over our life today, right now. And here it is. This is what idolatry is. It's the heart worship of anything other than God. Just simple. The heart worship of anything other than God. Now, it's a pretty general statement, but I think the most important part here is understanding the word heart worship. Because Jesus told us the importance of the heart in our life, right? He said that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Jesus taught what you value, what you worship, is where your heart is going to be found. And that there, he wasn't talking about like your aorta. He was talking about the whole center of your being. Who you are as a human being, whatever you're treasuring, valuing, finding worth in, worshiping, you're going to build your life around that. Which is why this is so important. It's the heart worship of anything other than God. And the question is, why do people seek out any kind of idol at all? Why do they run away from God? It's because they have needs, desires. They have wants that they believe this said God or idol or thing can meet. That's the driving motivation. If people were totally content in God, you had all that you needed, were happy as a clam, most likely you probably wouldn't abandon God. But when you're in seasons of life where you have a need, when there's pressure on you, when there's desire, a longing, that's when there's this tension. Where am I going to run to? What am I going to seek out to answer what I'm feeling within? For us today, this concept can feel foreign because we don't have idols or false gods like they do, not in America at least, in an explicit way. Other parts of the country or the world, they do actually have statues and gods and idols that we have seen. But for us right now, you're going to go about your day and probably not see any statue of anyone worshiping or bowing down to them. Probably won't happen. So this can be a little weird to us, but though there are several of them, and they would have carved images or statues to help people direct their worship, we still are surrounded by idols. We're still surrounded by false gods. That doesn't mean they're not present because we can't see them. In fact, I would argue they very much are. And what's interesting is that in most cases, most of the time, the concept of idolatry in the Bible is manifested not just in belief, but in action and service. It wasn't just like, what are you going to sing a song to is what you're worshiping. That's not what worship was. Worship was a whole way of life. It was expressed through what you did for these idols or these gods. It's how you behaved. It's what you acted on. When you read the Old Testament, one of the primary reasons God forbade the people from participating in idol worship, aside from the fact that it broke the first commandment, the reason he makes it such an urgent thing is that he didn't want them doing what those people did. He understood if you follow those other gods, Baal, Molech, you're going to go after them and do what they're going to do, that's not good. That's bad. You say, well, how bad was it? What were those things that they did? It was twisted and perverted practices of sexuality, child sacrifice, and a breakdown of justice and family life. It wasn't like a good time. Molech, one of the false gods of the people back in the day, would literally offer up infants, light them on fire as a sacrifice to this god to get what they needed. God's saying, I don't want you to do that. It's pretty wise. That was worshiping him. So God says, no, my people will not do that. See, he's not just protecting their worship, but their way of life. That's what he was after. And that's why the question in this text is so powerful, because your greatest moments of obedience and disobedience comes at times when you feel this. A need, a desire. The question is, who are you going to run after to get it? See, our popular choices today may not have names like Old Testament gods, but it might be things like sex, or pornography, money, work, food, substances, entertainment, sports, social media. These are things, all things that we are prone to run to when we need to seek refuge, quiet, peace, comfort, pleasure, or even fulfillment. I'm not guilty of a lot of this on here, but like sports in particular, just like I feel like I got a better prayer life when I'm not watching football, when it's not on. It's like bad. I know there's a lot of you in the room just like that too. Don't look at me like that. We're just like, if they just get this touchdown, my life would be complete. They win the Super Bowl, it's over. It's not. It's like the most ridiculous thing. But we get wrapped up in these things that we make as like the biggest deal ever. That's like, if this could happen, I'll be fulfilled. And like, we'll like change schedules and plans. We'll sacrifice for these things. That's like a fun example. But there's other things that we do in the secret, in the dark, that no one knows about, that we don't want them to see, that we run to for these bouts of pleasure or satisfaction, of comfort or peace, that no one would ever know that you do, but you know your heart runs to them. This is where we need to heed verses 4 warning, though. The result of pursuing our sin is not satisfaction, but sorrow. He said that those who run after another god, their sorrows don't get less, they multiply. So when you forsake God and you run after anything else, the lie is it's going to be the answer. The lie is it's going to be better. The lie is I'm going to be satisfied. The lie is I'm going to have peace. The truth is you only get worse. You don't get what it promised. It never delivers what it promises. I was at camp a week and a half ago teaching 6th to 12th graders, and it was an amazing time. It was a great group of students, but one of the things I did was I really tried to weave my story in and through each night that I preached. I preached them 4 times, Monday through Thursday, and so every now and then I would just connect it to my own story and my own experience as just a teenage guy. I started following Jesus halfway through my senior year in high school, and I told them that some of the greatest moments of shame and pain in my life come from my time in high school. I'm 30 years old now, so that feels like an eternity ago. But like I'm a husband, I'm a father, I got 3 kids, I'm a pastor of a church, and to this day, the things that creep up into my heart and mind that make me feel the most shame are things I did when I was 15 to 18 years old. To this day. I'm hoping that doesn't change. I'm hoping that I'm not like waiting for something worse to happen. But just as a reality of like, man, I look back on the worst season of my life so far when I was the furthest away from God, not following him at all, and the things I did then, I'm still paying the consequences for. Now, why did I do that? Did I do that because I wanted to be filled with regret later in life? No. Was it because I didn't know any better? I wish, but no. I didn't have a perfect life or family. I didn't have a perfect upbringing. My parents are here in the room right now. They weren't perfect, but they did their job. They had me around the right influences and places. I cannot plead ignorance to the mistakes that I've made. I can't just point to other people and say it's their fault. No, it wasn't. I didn't do the things I did back in that day because I didn't know better. I just didn't care. And I wanted what I wanted. That's it. I had no regard for any consequences. I had no regard for what was going to happen if I did this. I just knew what I wanted, and I thought I would beat the system of thinking like, oh, everyone else says it's not going to actually pay off. They're wrong. And now here I am, along with a history of mankind to tell you, guess what? They're right. It wasn't worth it. And I wish I had listened to the people around me in that time, the things I knew. I knew all the right stuff. I knew the reasons why not to do certain things, and I just didn't care because my heart desire was running my life. I bowed down to those idols of my day and said, I serve this. Not him, not anyone else, but this. And because of that, I'm paying the consequences today. The funny thing is, back then, I would get myself in situations that would end badly for me, and guess what I would do? Blame God. My actions would lead me to pain. I would be hurt. It was his fault. When I didn't get what I wanted, he was withholding something from me. I was the victim, and God was the villain. That's how I acted. That's how we all act. I got 3 kids. I talk about all the time. They all do this. They all have this kind of tendency. My youngest, who's about to be 3 in July, Judah, you know about him. He might end up in prison one day. We've talked about it. And so Hannah and the kids were in Coronado this last week, and she was sharing a story about what he does. He loves to just disobey. He's really good at disobeying. He's unbelievable at just not listening. It's fascinating. He loves it. He's a hard-headed, stubborn young man. Don't know where he gets it from. But he just doesn't care. So he likes to do what he wants to do. And they're at the beach, and he's running out into the waves and getting closer and closer. It's like where the waves crash in. And so he's like building up confidence, being warned, I'm sure, of like, hey, don't go far out. We always tell the kids when they do certain stuff, we always give them warnings. We always tell them, hey, if you do this, you keep doing this, something might bad happen. They hear it time and time again. So he's running out there. Eventually, Hannah tells me there's a time he gets too far out there. Wave is barreling down towards him. He can't outrun it. He's a little man. He can't get away from it. So Hannah sprints out there, snatches him up right before the wave gets him. He's clinging to Hannah, terrified, shaking. And I'm sure in that moment he wasn't actually upset at Hannah, but there's been time and time again where we actually pick them up because of their own decisions and mistakes, and they're angry and mad and crying. And I'm always a bad dad because in that moment I don't comfort. I say, will you stop doing it now? As they're like weeping and crying and they're cut all. You just think one day they'll get it and they don't. That's just sad. It's okay. But they do the same thing over and over again. They don't listen to the warnings. They don't believe what we say. Then they get hurt and they come running back and they might blame us. What we all are prone to do is what Proverbs 19:3 outlines. It says this: when a man's folly brings his way to ruin, his heart rages against the Lord. That just exposed some of you in the room, didn't it? When a man's folly, when our own mistakes and decisions get us ruin, not joy, but damage and pain, what do? Blame him. I've been there. And for some reason, we do this time and time again. Not everything bad that has happened to you is because of your own decisions and actions. Tragedies do take place. I want to be sensitive to that. But I also have a really strong working theory that a majority of the time, the pain that we experience, the damage that we come in touch with is because of the things that we decided to do, the actions that we took despite knowing better. I think for a lot of us, we can relate to that. You think back in your life right now, I think you would say that. And there's grace, there's redemption, but I think it's just a reality that we are prone to do this. And this is what happens. You ignore the warning signs, you cast off restraint, and then when it doesn't go well, you turn around and you point the finger at God. This is the human condition, and this is what happens when you run after other gods. When you run after your sin, when you run after other idols, and you bow down to them, it doesn't go well, and then you blame God. It doesn't pan out. So that's one option for us to run to, is our sin. Let's look now at the alternative. What else can we run to? What should we run to? And that is, secondly, you guessed it, our God. We're going to run somewhere for refuge. We're going to run somewhere for comfort and peace. We can either go to our sin or we can go to our God. From the verses remaining, we're going to see the rest of the psalm, 4 reasons how we should run to him. How do we actually make God this refuge in our life? And in that, we're going to see the reasons and motivations why. But I think already we see the reason. The alternative is not good. So anything else ought to be better, right? So how do we run to God? When we're talking about idolatry, running to our sin, these truths are going to be our main weapons to fight. Believing these things and putting them into practice will determine our obedience or our abandonment of God. So how do we do it? First off, choose him to satisfy your longings. Choose him to satisfy your longings. Verse 5, David says, "The Lord is my chosen portion and my cup. You hold my lot." To the words portion and my cup are images often used in the Old Testament to describe what we receive and focus on in this life. Portion usually refers to inheritance or land. Back in the day, they would be given a portion of land, an allotment of land, right? Cup would refer to what people receive in this life. It's whatever our source of joy and blessing is. So David is saying this: I have chosen to make God my cup and my portion. He's my source of joy, peace, comfort, him. I'm choosing him. Nothing else, I'm choosing him. I have God, I have everything I need. In fact, I have more than I need. You guys know my whole soapbox on that Jesus is not just enough, but he's better. That's a faith exercise that we got to believe that David right here is mastering. In the Psalms, you see it time and time again, him having to come to a moment of reminding himself that he's chosen God to be his portion and cup, and nothing can take that from him. Nothing that happens to him, nothing that he does, it's his forever. See, most of your life is going to be aimed at finding a way to satisfy the longings and desires of your heart. The key for the Christian is not to kill off those longings, but to have them filled by what's good and true, which is only found in Jesus. I was talking this at the camp as well. It's not bad that you want things. It's not bad that you crave things. It's not bad that you have longings. You're designed to. God's put something in us that this world cannot satisfy. There's always going to be a desire for something. And our experience is trying to go to things that we think will be the answer and then finding out, sadly, they aren't. And then we just time and time again do the same thing over and over again. The faith exercise here is believing what the Bible tells us, that he rewards those that seek him, that he fills the hungry soul with good things, that he fills the longing soul. It tells us this in the scriptures. So it's not, man, stop wanting stuff. It's, man, let your desires be actually satisfied in the only thing that can satisfy. But that's easier to say than done, isn't it? Here's the tension. At every turn, we have a choice between how we are going to get our needs and wants met. At every moment in your life, that's the tension. You got a need and want and desire. How are you going to get it met? Usually there are wrong ways, sin, and right ways, obedience. Here's the honest truth, is that the wrong ways, the sinful ways, are almost always more enjoyable, pleasurable, and easier. It's the honest truth. Anyone who would say otherwise is a fool. That's the issue with sin. It feels good. Whether it's like an actual activity of like going and watching pornography or having sex, or it's going to let your anger go and just blow up on people or gossip and lie. You don't like to have restraint. So you want to do what your heart wants to do, whether negatively or positively. It's easier. It feels better. It's more enjoyable. The issue is that it doesn't feel good. Its issue is that it doesn't end well. That's sin's issue. Here's the key. We can't measure God's faithfulness or goodness by moments. We don't live for moments. Because that's where the battle is won or lost. Moments in your life. Can you put up with the desire for just a moment? Can you say no for just a moment? Can you take a breath for just a moment? We aren't here chasing after moments with Jesus, but an eternity with Jesus. Sin can win the moments, but Jesus wins eternity. If you're only chasing after moments of life, then you're going to chase sin. Sin is great in the moment. It feels good, feels freeing, but it leads to death. Obedience can feel the opposite. It can feel unfair. It can feel frustrating, even wrong, because it demands self-denial but leads to life. That's the difference, okay? So here's this. You're in a moment right now of making a decision. Am I going to fall into this temptation? Am I going to give in? And sin would be like an immediate, yes, easy. I feel good. I'm enjoying this. I'm happy. 5 minutes later, you're miserable. Obedience is the self-denial. I'm not caving. I'm saying no to this. I'm believing God is better. And in that moment, there's this tension of like, you can't breathe. But if you would just hang on a moment, obedience, though it hurts in that brief moment, in the long run, it pays off. It's better. Life, no shame, no regret. It's just, that's all it is. Most of the battle right now it's all about patience and trust. Can you wait it out? because no feeling is final and feelings are fleeting. The desires you have right now, which you'll have later tonight, which you'll have this week, if you would just hold on for a moment, go to God as your refuge, wait in him, watch how suddenly that desire wanes, that longing quiets, and you avoid falling into temptation. You avoid chasing after the sin in your life. So how do we seek him? First, I've got to choose him. That's this moment. I'm choosing him. I'm denying myself to choose him, trusting he will answer in the long run better than sin ever can. Second thing that we do to run to God, trust him with where you are. Trust him with where you are. Verse 6 says, the lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Indeed, I have a beautiful inheritance. So verse 5 actually ends leading into the thought of verse 6 by speaking of God holding our lot. That's what verse 6 is referring to when it says, the lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Again, a lot of land, a portion of land to be etched out, on a map or something to show you this is now yours. It's been given to you. It's a metaphorical thing to show that whatever has happened in your life, whatever situation or circumstance you've been through or in currently, the idea that David is saying is, no matter what, I could say this, it's going well for me. I'm okay. In the highs and lows, I'm okay. Because God is holding my lot. The lines have fallen in pleasant places for me. I'm going to be all right. It's this contentment, this quiet confidence. When facing situations or circumstances that look precarious or worrisome, the ability to have a quiet confidence in the God who has and continues to order your steps is crucial. Of just having this understanding, nothing happens in your life apart from falling through the hands of a loving Father, being filtered through that. No pain he can't take and work together for your good. There's a confidence there. I'm trying to teach my little girl this right now. She's having trouble sleeping at night, driving me crazy. Having nightmares, dreams, wakes up scared, thinks someone's going to break into the house. She's like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, you just go to sleep. And it happens, it happens. I don't know. I walk out of the room. That's how it actually happens. That might be on the third or fourth attempt where I'm like, enough, it's going to bed. I'm about to break into your room right now if you don't stop this. But I'm trying to teach her. It's like, hey, I used to be her age. I used to be a really worrisome, scared, anxious kid. I was. And one of the things that over time, later on, that really soothed my soul, that's helped me from this point on, is the understanding of the sovereignty of God. Of not just him like ruling and reigning, but just like the fact that he is a father to me, that like no matter what's happening in my life, he is ordering my steps. And he's able to work it together for my good. And there really is no reason for me to worry or be afraid, but to trust him. Like, I'm not calling the shots. You're not calling the shots. No one in my neighborhood's calling the shots. No one in the city of Las Vegas is calling the shots. No one around the globe is calling the shots. God's calling the shots. And that God is my Father. So that, to me, is the most restful thing I can tell myself. In times when I get anxious and worried and stressed, calming down, remember who my refuge is, the God of the universe. I'm trying to get my girl to understand that, hey, you got nothing to worry about. Go to sleep. He gives his beloved sleep. So don't be anxious about anything, but trust your heavenly Father. The reason God is the ultimate refuge is because of exactly what verse 5 says. He holds our lot. Where we are, where we've been, where we're going, it's in his hands. And though that may not always be what you want it to be or where you want to go, you along with David can say, the lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. So there is deep power in the Holy Spirit empowered act of acceptance. Here's the thing. God's children aren't called to have or given a circumstantial faith. That's not what he gave us. He didn't give us a faith that depends on the right situation and circumstances. He gave us a faith that we can always rejoice in, can always be confident in him, because it's not found in a place but a person. It rests on him. It doesn't rest on good times but on God. So no matter what we do in our life, we don't have to be subject to the things happening around us to determine if we're going to be happy or sad or rejoice or comforted or have peace. No matter where you're out in the storm, with a refuge like God who holds your lot, you can have peace. You can be quiet, safe in him. We'll get more into this next week when we look at one of the greatest Psalms of all time, but it is a high privilege, the highest privilege and comfort to say, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. This echoes that idea. He holds my lot. He holds my life. What happens to me, not ultimately in my control. And he tells me, cast my anxieties on him and to rest under his mighty hand. So let's make that our refuge. Third thing to do to run to him, keep him in front of you at all times. Verse 7 says, I bless the Lord who gives me counsel in the night. Also my heart instructs me. I have set the Lord always before me because he is at my right hand. I shall not be shaken. So you can't expect God to be your refuge if you don't ever go to him. In those moments we talked about before, the battlegrounds of temptation, just trying to abstain is not trying to win the battle. It's choosing him is what wins the battle. It's finding a promise of God that you're going to go and rest on and believe in. Not just like willpower, but it's running to him in those times. Not only in the bad times of temptation, but anytime you're walking with him throughout your day. If you don't spend time in his presence, you can't make him your refuge. This is why many smart people over the years have taught it's a non-negotiable to prioritize time alone with him. Listen to what Clyde Cranford said. He built his life on this concept. He said, for centuries, those who have truly sought to know God intimately have found it imperative, necessary, non-negotiable to set aside some time each day to focus their attention and affections on him. What Clyde's detailing right there, making him his refuge. Whether it's in the morning, at evening, midday, it's going to the Father. It's setting your mind and your affections on him and him alone. But here's the catch. It's important to have orderly times alone with him every day. But it isn't the only time you can spend with him. I was with a pastor a few weeks ago who said this. He was teaching. He said, I think, a little bit of a hot take, he thinks that quiet time culture, that's what we call sometimes spending time with God, quiet time, God time, abiding. He thinks that quiet time culture has actually hurt us in the long run than helped us. I said, can you unpack that for me, please? And he said the reason why is not because the quiet time is wrong, but we've reduced our relationship with Jesus throughout our day to just mere moments now of that day rather than the whole of it. We think, we can spend time with Jesus, get 15, maybe 30 minutes. If you're super holy, 45, 60 minutes, you're seeing heaven at that point, right? Like maybe you set some time aside and do that. Good, great. Then you go about your day. It's like, I got my blessing. I'm about to go and I'm about to do this whole Jesus thing. And then you go about your life. That's not how God designed us to live. It's not how God designed us to walk by the Spirit. And if you miss that one window of time, it's not like, I guess I got to book an appointment with him tomorrow and see if he's available. Maybe I can get my God time then. Wait till another 24-hour period. No, he's always accessible to us. The Spirit resides within us. So to keep him before us is not like, hey, perpetually be in a God time for 24 hours. Don't leave your house. Don't stop reading the Bible. No, it's hide the word of God in your heart. Be praying in the Spirit all the time. As you're walking around, driving your car, be mindful of his presence with you. It goes with you. You don't leave it at your dinner room table. It doesn't stay at home. He's always with us. And when we reduce this concept to just a time alone with him in one place at one time, I think we miss out. How would your confidence and peace grow if you grew in your awareness of his presence throughout your day? Just always being mindful of that. He's with you. Talk to him. Under your breath, in your mind, in your heart, whatever it is. You always have access to the throne room of God. You don't need a book. You don't need a specific place. No, he destroyed that with the cross. It's available now to all of us at all times, anywhere. We're a temple of the living God. So for us to make him our refuge, to run to him, we got to keep him before us. For sure, have times in your day that you have etched out where you're going to read and pray. Do that. It's good. But when you leave that place, if you miss that window of time, do not throw the towel in. Try to be more mindful of him. Try to walk with him, talk with him, commune with him even as you go. So how do we run to God? First, choose him to satisfy our longings. Secondly, trust him where you are. Thirdly, keep him in front of you at all times. Fourth and finally, we close with this. Rejoice in what he promises. Rejoice in what he promises. Verses 9 through 11. The ending of the psalm says, therefore, because God is my refuge, my heart is glad. My whole being rejoices. My flesh also dwells secure. For you will not abandon my soul to Sheol or let your Holy One see corruption. Instead, you make known to me the path of life. In your presence, there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. Beautiful few verses here. I've also always heard people say, like, hey, this is like the greatest offering of all time. You find something better than this, you can abandon God immediately. You find something else that offers you fullness of joy and pleasures forevermore, but you can't improve on that. And that's the promise that we have in Jesus. It may not be immediately right now. It may be a little bit later on. It might be echoes or hints of it as you walk with him. But the promise is one day when we die, we will not go to corruption. We'll go to eternity with him with pleasures forevermore and the fullness of joy. He's saying, listen, if you can hold off a few moments in your life, a fleeting pleasure, there is an eternity waiting for you that you can't even imagine. And what's so great is that this promise banks on, not you and I, but on Jesus. In fact, Peter and Paul in the book of Acts, they reference this verse. Not talking about them, but talking about Jesus. Talking about God's Holy One being Jesus, that he did not die and see corruption, but he went to the cross, took on our sin and our shame. He died for us, was buried, but he rose again. He didn't go to Sheol, he didn't go to corruption, but he rose again, ascended into heaven. And now you and I have an opportunity that we can, through faith and trust in him, be made new. We get this promise that we live for today, that he secured with his death and burial and resurrection. Even right here, the Psalms are prophetic in that way. It is written for us, but also is written to explain and talk about the future glory of Jesus. That he is God's perfect, holy one who died for you and me. And because he did that, he secured for us a glorious future. So in those moments, you gotta have some delayed gratification. You have the ability to say no to something right now, to say yes to something down the road. It might be a lifetime, but listen, a lifetime in view of eternity is a moment. And the promise is good. So here's the question. When times are hard, when things are bad, when you're in a state of need or just desperation, where do you run to? Are you gonna continue to run to your sin, the idols and gods in your life that cannot satisfy, that will only increase your sorrow, that will only leave you in pain and shame? Or today, will you run to him? Will you make God the refuge of your heart and your life? Trusting him, confiding in him, resting in him. Let's make God our refuge today. Would you pray with me as we close?